What is going on? We're back with another segment of It's Nothing Personal, Just Buffalo. Got my co-host in the building with me, James Mallory. James, what's going on, my man?
What's going on? What's going on, man? It's good to be back, man. We got a lot of exciting things on the come up here in Buffalo, so I'm excited to get after it.
This is true. So, on today's segment, right? And mind you, this segment is brought to you by Checkers. So make sure you get your local Checkers and get your burgers, some chicken tenders, some fries, whatever you want. They got you covered. Dalton Kincaid. Now, the Bills traded up in the NFL draft, took the tight end. Most experts say the best tight end in the NFL draft this season. Some people wasn't with it, man. I can tell you right now, okay? I was one of these detractors before the NFL draft happened that said there's no way possible that the Buffalo Bills would take a tight end. This didn't seem possible with obviously the $54 million contract extension that we just gave to Dawson Knox before the beginning of last season, right? After digging into Kincaid a little bit more, and I admit maybe I was a tad bit ignorant on what type of player he was, who he was as a player, but after digging in, and I did a very deep dive, I'm a lot more confident today than I was the night of the Bills drafting Dalton Kincaid from Utah. Now, first, before we dive into him and who he is and how he will fit in this offense, because in this segment we will break down how we think he fits in this offense, the pros of having him, but we're also going to talk about possibly the cons. Okay, Dalton Kincaid, James, what did you think of the pick? What do you think some of the things that before we dive deep into it that he's going to bring to this offense?
I wasn't mad at it.
Okay.
To be honest with you, I had a lot going on the day of the first round draft. I was getting ready to leave out of town with my 7-on-7 team, so I was just packing, getting everything in order. It was my little sister's birthday as well,
Mm.
so I'm just getting everything in order and doing stuff with the family. So this is the first time I really wasn't able to watch every single pick. We were watching it, but eating cake and all the good stuff, right?
Yeah.
I thought he was gone already. I didn't even
Okay.
realize that he was still available at that pick. So when we did pick him, I was like, wow, another weapon. So me, I'm not a guy where I lay out the roster, right? And I'm like, okay, let's fill this hole, this hole, this hole in the draft. I'm not a guy like that. I'm a guy with, if you drafting people, they got to be ballers and you got to hit on them. Long as you hit on them, we can figure the rest out later. You have a team full of ballers, we can figure that out, right?
Right.
So if he's a baller, like what we seen him do in college and we believe he can do, I think it was a no-brainer. I don't care what else you got. You want to load the offense up with weapons for Josh Allen. So everywhere he looked through his progressions, he got somebody that's a mismatch or could potentially win. Defenses can't key in on people. You just want to load it up with just as many weapons as possible. I love the pick.
How much do you think the fact that there possibly wasn't a lot of first round grade wide receivers in this draft, and the receivers that were graded highly didn't really, outside of Johnston, didn't have a lot of size, play into effect that the Bills went and drafted Kincaid and added him to this offense instead?
I think it's just a grade. I don't have to get, when you talk size, I don't really think it's the size because nowadays, with how versatile players are, the things you can do with them, I don't think size really played much of a factor. I don't really look at size. I don't think teams look at size as much, right? I think you look at the baller factor, and I think he was a better football player than anybody else on the board at that time. And I think that's what it came down to. I don't think it came down to nothing else, but he was just a better football player.
I actually do think size played. So this is kind of one of the things that I went and obviously researched. This is something we talked about last year as well. Last year, it wasn't up until like week 13 where the Bills finally broke into the top half of red zone offense. For the better part of last year, they were in the bottom half, ranked 19th, 18th, 17th. So it wasn't up until I think around week 13 where they started climbing. They eventually concluded the season ranked number 9 in red zone offense, and that's down from ranked number 1 in the previous season. So I believe that there was definitely some red zone issues there. And one of the things that we talked about last year was the lack of size. When we talk about Gabe Davis is a bigger receiver, but that's not really his game.
Mhm.
You know that's not the type of player he is. Stephon Diggs is an excellent receiver, but once again, he's not the biggest red zone target. It seemed like we were relying on Dawson Knox or Josh Allen legs 9 times out of 10. I don't even want to get into about choosing not to run the football in the red zone with Devin Singletary, who's not with Houston Texans last year. We actually had a pretty good stat line as far as red zone carries. I don't even want to get into that, but we just speaking about the passing game. It seems like we didn't have the size for guys that could go up and just make that contested catch. Because everything gets scrunched down inside that 5 to 10, that 15-yard line. It's condensed. There's little room for error, and a lot of times it comes down to who's going to make that play. And it seems like the Bills lack size inside that area.
Yeah, I don't think it's really size, right? Because if it's size, I mean it's only jump balls. How often do you just only throw jump balls in the red zone? I don't think size plays as much of a factor as what people think, because you just got to get open. You got to win. And Stephon Diggs is one of the best to do it. What I think it is when you just not running the ball in the red zone, it makes it a lot easier on defenses. But that has changed now with Damon Harris and Latavius Murray. That's going to change, in my opinion. I believe that's going to change.
I hope it does.
That's immediately going to make the red zone offense better, because now you have a threat to run the ball. When you can look at, if you're on the 10-yard line, right, and you see linebackers literally bailing, like, dude, the ball snaps immediately, they flipping their hips and they getting out there, they bailing. Why? Because there's not a run threat besides your quarterback. That's a problem, right? And I'm not saying it's a player problem, maybe it's play calling, but whatever it is, it's a problem. So I think that was more of our red zone problem than size. Is it nice to have bigger receivers there? Yes. But I think it's more about getting open, but in the red zone, but it's good to have that size. That's what you pay Dawson Knox $54 million for. It's another story. And you got to be able to run the ball in the red zone. If you can't run the ball efficiently in the red zone, it's a problem.
Speaking about the red zone, this is a guy, and I want to give you these numbers because I told you I was going to deep dive. Obviously, this guy's come from Utah last year, Kincaid. He had 70 receptions on 93 targets, which is a great catch percentage. 890 yards with 8 touchdowns. He actually had 8 touchdowns in back-to-back years in 2021 and 2022. But I'm going to give you a very interesting stat. He played 401 snaps in 2022, okay? Out of those 401 snaps, only 142 of those were in line. 221 of those snaps were in the slot.
Very interesting.
Now, if you go back to 2021, 305 snaps, 141 in line, 138 in the slot. So obviously there's a disparity, and in Utah they found something with him inside the slot.
Yep.
And I was reading, they were saying that obviously he's a little bit light. I think he's like 238 pounds, something like that, right? There's only 3 tight ends in the NFL that weigh less than 240 pounds. So he's lighter for a tight end, which would make sense of why the inline snaps weren't necessarily there.
Yep.
But at the same time, we also know about the rookie 10. So I'm not worried about the weight. I ain't worried about the weight at all. You know about the rookie 10. He's going to put on 10 pounds throughout this season and come in next season around 248, 250. Very crafty inside. I know that someone called them, I forgot which reporter called them, the Cole Beasley of tight ends or something like that. And Cole Beasley took exception to it. Like Cole Beasley take exception to everything that we've come to find out in more recent times. But what that mean was he knows how to read zones. He knows how to find those pockets in the zone. He sits well, and he's sure-handed. I look at it as this. So, as I said earlier in the show, wasn't happy with the tight end pick. Once I did a deep dive, realized he's not a tight end. He's more of a, what you've always called players, once again, going to positionless football. He's a weapon.
Yep.
That's exactly what it is, and you're 100% correct about that. So now I'm thinking, and I said, okay, well, the Bills struggled in the red zone last year. Once again, it gives you. I think it gives you a more sure-handed guy, a bigger target, a bigger catch radius. So when we talk about size, I talk about catch radius a lot. You know that, and that makes a big difference. How far the guy can stretch to get the football. Where can Josh Allen put this ball at where no one else can get it? That only his receiver can get it. That helps you with that. Okay. I think it helps you with different concepts, mesh concepts. Now, mind you, I don't know how much he's going to play in line with the Bills this season. I think that we'll see that very sparingly because I just don't think physically he's up to doing that yet. Next year, I think, is a different story.
Mhm.
But that's a tough cover because now, if you see the Bills on 12 personnel, and it's not necessarily real 12 personnel, right? With him going to the slot. It is, but it isn't. It's two tight ends, but it ain't really 12. It's a tough matchup for a linebacker because this guy has great footwork. And he's deceptively, according to Steve Smith, deceptively quick. Okay? Then, if you put a cornerback on him, it's a tough matchup because now you have to get around that body of that target. And that's one of the things that we can say Buffalo really hasn't had. You haven't had that guy that can make those tough contested catches outside of Stephon Diggs. We've seen Gabe make some catches, but they're more deep balls down the field. I'm talking about in that 10 to 15 yard range. That's what we were missing bad. And obviously that's why we brought Cole Beasley back at the tail end of last season. I think Kincaid can bring a lot to us in that category.
Agree. I agree there. He's going to bring a different element. I think he's probably going to be using a lot of like an H-back role. Where you see him line the ball over. You may see him line up at fullback, motion him out. You may see him line up at fullback, come through, slice backside, play action, boom, dump it off to him, let him rock. There's a lot of different things you'll be able to use him for. And I think our tight end room, man, just kind of talking about our tight end room, JT. Man, you talking about him, Quentin Morris, and then Dawson Knox. You have three dudes that can play, man. You have three dudes that can do something with the ball after catch. So if you think about from a weapon standpoint, like people talking, oh, we need receiver. Well, yes, but then when you look at the tight end room, when them guys can make plays, do you? I mean, that's the question. That's the question. I mean, we have three tight ends who you can get them the ball and they can make plays. Quentin Morris, he made a couple plays for us last year.
He did.
Dawson Knox, we know what he can do. And then obviously Kincaid, we have high hopes for him. And then you kind of partner that with Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, Hardy, who I'm very, very high on.
Yeah.
And then James Cook. It's a lot of weapons there, man. And people not thinking about it that way. Yeah. Yes.
Khalil Shakir. Come back here too.
Shakir. We can't keep sleeping on him. I think he's going to be a starting outside receiver for us in 2024. I
think so too.
Yeah, he's going to be outside. That's what he is. He's an outside receiver. People look at his size and think he's going to be a slot. That's where you're mistaken. He's going to be an outside receiver. Him and Stephon Diggs will be our two outside receivers in 24. Another story. But we do have a lot of dudes that can catch the ball and do some things. So I'm excited about it.
You know what's interesting, right? Out of this tight end room. And like I said, I don't want to go too deep into the tight end room because we're going to be doing segments on every single position heading into mini camps and training camp and things of that such. But everybody on this offense can make a play.
Yep.
Everybody in that tight end room can make a play. Like the years of us having Lee Smith, and that's not a knock on Lee Smith because he was actually very valuable for what he did for our football team. You're not going to get away with not covering one of these guys.
Not at all. Every single play, every eligible receiver has to be accounted for. Like you can't. There's no Tommy Sweeney there where you like, all right, if he catch it, he get 2 yards up there. Catch, it's a wrap. There's none of that at all on the roster.
Right. I'll give you a name, and I know that Kincaid has been compared to Travis Kelce, and I'm not big on comparisons of players of the caliber of Travis Kelce. Because I think, it puts a lot of added pressure onto a kid that's 20, 21, 22, 20, 24 years old in Kincaid's case. I think we saw that with Ed Oliver and the Aaron Donald comparison. I think people have to be very careful with the comparisons. And I get it. It's not saying that this player is going to mimic their career, but it's size and play style, things that's what people take away left. I'll give you a name who I think Kincaid a reasonable name I think Kincaid compares well to Chris Cooley. Chris Cooley of the Washington, well, Commanders.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay,
It's a good one.
I
It's
ain't
a
gonna
good
say
one.
the other word. I think like because when you brought up the H back role and how they could use him, I remember that the now Commanders at the time had Chris Cooley. I believe they had Jordan Reed at one point with him, and
Yes.
I believe they had maybe been Robert Royal, I think with him, and they used Cooley all across the field, backfield, fullback, tight end. They can split them out. I see Kincaid as that type of player with this offense, and once again, we saw it last season. At the beginning of last season, the Bills trying to add versatility to this offense with the draft pick of James Cook in the second round, with the trade for Naeem Hines at the deadline, trying to infuse speed into the offense. Isaiah McKenzie, it didn't really work out how I thought it would, but this is another type of addition of adding someone who can make plays. Because mind you, not only was this receiving core, not only was this tight end core, we were one of the worst teams in yards after catch for multiple seasons now. So I just think that he adds a lot of value. What kind of how early do you think he plays? Do you think he's a day one guy? Do you think that he's a guy that they're going to have to wait to contribute, or where do you see his timeline of contributions going there?
I think he's going to play week right away.
Okay.
Right away, you put him in the game plan. He's too much of a weapon to not put into the game plan right away. But the great thing you have with that is you don't need to throw the whole boatload of tight end pressure on him because Dawson Knox is still there. He's literally a weapon where you can use him sparingly. You can pick and choose your times where you're going to use him. So that's the luxury of the Bills picking him. And this is what makes teams like guys like this successful in these type of situations where it's not a ton of pressure on him, where he can find his niche and just do him. And that's what I love about it. And this pick, I expect him to really, really, really do his thing. Now, I got a question for you, JT.
What you got?
What you know, as we sit here and we kind of think about his expectations and what we got on offense and the personnel, what's your expectations for him this rookie year? Give me a prediction of stat lines your expectations for him.
I mean, a lot of that's going to be based on Ken Dorsey, and I do think that we're going to break away from the rookie redshirt years, right? Because we saw our top picks have rookie redshirt outside of Ed Oliver. We saw Boogie Basham have one. We saw AJ Epinesa have one. We saw Kyrie Elam pretty much last year have a redshirt year. I think he's playing immediately. I do think he's playing immediately. I think this is a guy. I think he's going to pick up quickly in camp, probably a little bit faster than some of our other draft picks have. Obviously, this is not an Epinesa Basham situation where they're going to try to change his body type and things like that to get him ready to play at the NFL level.
Because what is he, 6'5", 6'4"?
Yeah, 6'5", 6'5", about 238, I believe. He's already a better route runner, I think, than Dawson Knox from day one. Okay, Dawson Knox is not known. He's not a route runner. That's not what he does. Dawson Knox is this pure speed guy. He's a playmaker. Okay, but a technician is not what he is. This kid is a technician with footwork. I think that this is going to be something different for the Bills' offense, which is why I think he's going to be in there immediately. Now, if he struggles early on, then yeah, you may see them pull the reins back a little bit. But I think they're going to give it to him immediately. Say, hey, get out there. You got to do what you got to do. It wouldn't surprise me if week one, when we play the New York Jets, that he's literally out there for more than 40 to 50% of the offensive snaps. Because I think another added value is we talk about run blocking. Now, he is not known as a blocker. But there is a big difference that if a 5'10", 5'11", 6 foot, 200-pound receiver blocking a cornerback that matches that same size, normally nickel, 5'11", 5'10", to a 6'5", 238-pound tight end.
Yep.
It's a big difference. Like unless you literally just are allergic to blocking, that's a big size advantage. You can figure it out as you go because your strength and size is much different than the guy across from you. Now, if he's gonna go out there and block a linebacker, no. But if that linebacker is lined up on him on the slot, he ain't blocking anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You got probably one hell of a problem if he picks it up. So I think that he plays often. I think he plays early. I think that McDermott and Ken Dorsey know that, hey, the pressure's on. And that's a whole nother segment for a whole nother day there. The pressure's on.
Yeah.
You can't wait, and Ken Dorsey needs to be drawing things up for this kid right now. You got to scheme him into the game plan.
I totally agree. So give me a stat line prediction.
Okay, rookie year. I'm going to go somewhere in the elemental realm of 45 catches, 550 yards, 4 touchdowns maybe. I think somewhere right in there. I don't want to go over crazy with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think that's okay. And hell, that's more than we got in our slot last year.
Yeah, I totally agree. You right along with me. I had 40 catches, around 500 something yards, and I had 6 touchdowns.
6, okay.
Is mine, because he'll probably what he's going to end up being is he's going to be a red zone mismatch somehow, some way. Yeah. So I'm thinking 6 touchdowns. Might be a little high, but I'm thinking 6.
I mean, just thinking on goal line, we can really go 3 tight ends now.
Literally,
there's no reason not to be able to go 3 tight ends, and all 3 of these guys are, like you said, mismatches, and all these guys have speed. They're none of our tight end room is not slow at all.
Yeah.
So, like I say, I think that this is a great addition for the Buffalo Bills. Like I said, I know a lot of people wanted a wide receiver. I know some people wanted a linebacker. I don't think that most of the linebackers had first round grades, but I think Kincaid over time is going to be a valuable pickup, just as the fact that obviously we still don't know what's going on with Stephon Diggs, and that's another story another day. And Gabe Davis is contract is up after the season, and I don't. If Tremaine Edmonds give you an indication, it doesn't like the Buffalo Bills are going to have that money available to give him when he hits that market, because we've seen that receiver market has inflated.
His market is going to be crazy.
Right.
He's about to get paid. Let's
right.
get ready for the compository pick we're going to get for him.
Right. Right. And other things, like I said, if you do lose him, Kincaid lessens that blow a little bit. He'll be going to year 2. You still got Dawson Knox. One thing that we've seen from the Kansas City Chiefs that we can take from them, and I'll leave it off at here, is they've continually adapted to what roster they have. Yeah. And that's exactly what the Buffalo Bills are going to have to do. So if you can't replace Gabe Davis after the season that happens, then you replace his numbers in the offense with a different role. And I think that's what Kincaid does here.
Absolutely.
But, hey, it's another segment. Kincaid, welcome to Buffalo. It's nothing personal, just Buffalo. I'm your host, JT, co-host James Mallory. And remember, this is brought to you by Checkers. Peace!